What's going on YouTube? It's Teej back again with another video, and today we are diving further into the 2024 NFL Draft class, and today we're talking cornerbacks. We're going to go 5 up to 1 on who I think the best corners in this class is, and then I'll give you 5 honorable mentions to kind of think about. Keep your eyes on this upcoming weekend of college football action. You're seeing this hopefully on Saturday, or if you're seeing it after the fact, it'll give you incentive to go back, check out how these guys did, while also keeping an eye on them moving forward week 3 and on. So if you feel like I left anybody out, let me hear it down below in the comment section. Who were some of the corners that I didn't talk about that you feel like I'm crazy for not including? There are plenty more corners that I watched and just didn't have, in my top 10. So it's a position I really like watching. So I tend to go down rabbit holes with a lot of these guys. But because of that, there's a lot of dudes I like, but they weren't able to make the cut because I'm only talking about 10. And you guys get the gist of what we're doing. Let's jump right into it, starting with cornerback number 5. I'm going to go Josh Newton. I think he's got a really nice solid frame, prototypical build, 6 foot, 190 pounds, and has played really well at TCU. And, right now, it's not a fun time to be a TCU fan. Obviously, with the loss to Colorado last week, I think a lot of that is more so Colorado maybe more legit than a lot of people were anticipating. But Josh Newton last year, I know Trey Tomlinson was the guy who got drafted and got a lot of the draft buzz, and Newton goes back to school. But Newton last year was a really, really solid player. And he's one of those guys that when I watch him, I guess this is kind of my one con, is I don't know if he has one single calling card trait. I don't know if I can look at Josh Newton and be like, hey, man, if your defense is this, he's the perfect fit. He's just good across the board. He plays with good physicality, solid against the run, would be good inside, can play outside, man, zone, enough long speed, good recovery speed, enough lateral movement, and of course, enough physicality at the line of scrimmage itself. So, it's coming off a year in 2022 with an 83.9 coverage grade using PFF's data, 82 overall grade, tackling at 72.7. He does it in a lot of different areas. Obviously, only one game played so far in 2023. The grade's not great, so it's not a great start to the season, but there's still so much time left to be played. And he gives me poor man's Pat Surtain vibes, and it's because I remember what I used to say about Pat Surtain and him versus J.C. Horn. It's like J.C. Horn is a defined strength. J.C. Horn's going to be a great man press corner. Pat Surtain, it's like he's so good at so many different things that, and he's not just good at so many different things, he's very good at a lot of different things. He's like a B+ across the board. He's just close to being elite, but not quite there in so many different ways. But because he is very good just across the board, he kind of is elite. And I think Newton's just a step down. He's good across the board versus very good across the board. So I got a lot of poor man's Pat Surtain vibes when I was watching Josh Newton again this year. Then Nate Wiggins from Clemson comes in at number 4. I mean, this is the ultimate projection kind of upside guy I could find. And man, he is my type of corner. There will be 2 corners we talk about that are sub 6 foot. I like my corners tall. I like long arms. I am that type of guy. And Nate Wiggins has got it. 6'2", 185. Maybe he needs to bulk up a little bit, put that in the con category, but tons of potential. And like I said, 6'2", he is a true size speed guy. In a lot of ways, a lot of times in scouting, when you just put it that way, it simplifies a lot of what is good, what is bad. So I am kind of condensing what I think he does well, but trust me, I do like Nate Wiggins a lot. That's why he's number 4. But it's the frame, it's the athleticism. That's why he's up this high. And he's got experience in both left and right side of the defense. So, I like that, being able to play both sides. If you're going to play on the perimeter, man and zone, Clemson mixes it up, so that's nice too. Wide receiver background, I think you see some of that with his ball skills. So that's always really, really encouraging. But I think getting over the cons, again, probably needs to add a little bit of weight. Still kind of looks like maybe a little bit more of a wide receiver versus a corner. Not a great tackler, not going to do a whole lot in the run game. And he's still learning coverage. And you can tell he's a little raw there because he's simplified his assignment a lot. He is only watching hips, and he's not really watching heads of a corner, right? Or a wide receiver, rather. He's not watching when the wide receiver's turning his heads to get a key on, hey, the ball's coming my way. He's keeping it very simple right now. He's watching hips, and he's just playing the receiver. He's not playing the ball. He's not trying to keep an eyes in the backfield. He's keeping it very, very simple. 2023 might be the year, though, where we see that change. And he's just one of these guys, again, with size speed freaks. It doesn't take a whole lot of play before you're like, okay, yep, they've turned the corner. They're ready to be a breakout candidate. So it could totally happen this upcoming season. He's also, a very young player, true junior. So coming, through one game, 68.6 coverage grade against Duke. That's a decent way to start his season. Hopefully we see it get better and better throughout the upcoming year. Then we get to number 3, Cooper DeJean. And ultimately, he, just as much as Wiggins, is the ultimate wild card. Cooper DeJean might be the best athlete in this class. I mean, an absolute standout star in track, basketball, baseball, both sides of the ball in offense. Like, he's probably a better athlete than Mike Gesicki, but diving into his profile and his backstory and like kind of what got him to Iowa, it gave me a lot of Mike Gesicki vibes because the more I dove into Gesicki, I was like, dude, this guy was a freak volleyball player. His highlight tapes for basketball is ridiculous. This guy should put him in the dunk contest because he's bananas. And he's a 3-star defensive end, 5-star tight end. It's like this guy is just so talented that he'll fit wherever you want to put him. And DeJean may take it even a step further because, like I said, you got baseball in there too, and that's no easy task either. But then you talk about the frame and paired up with that athleticism, we're talking about 6'1", almost 210 pounds. Really, the only thing from an athletic standpoint that I think he's not like excellent at is lateral movement and change of direction skills. He is definitely not the most fleet of foot when it comes to working laterally, but he makes up for it with straight line speed, physicality, play strength. Like he is, and we're going to talk about Kalen King obviously at number 2. And like where Kalen King is this free, twitchy athlete, he's got the lateral movement and change of directions. He's giving up a little bit of height where DeJean, you're not worried about that. And DeJean like totally could be a press corner at the next level. That being said, he was the player I deliberated the most. Him and the one guy in my honorable mention. I decided to put both my slot guys basically in this. I think DeJean's role at the next level is going to be kind of Kyle Hamilton-esque. Slot corner, strong safety hybrid, keep him in the box. He's a willing tackler. He's a hard hitter. He wants to, inflict some damage to ball carriers. So keep him in the box. Take advantage of that. And I don't know, I'll go back and forth with that because I feel like Vin, you're calling more on his lateral movement skills, and the guy we'll talk about in the honorable mentions has that sideline to sideline lateral left to right movement more so than DeJean. So I don't know, I feel like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but ultimately he's going to be a really interesting prospect once he gets to the NFL because is he playing outside corner? Is he going to play split high safety? Is he going to play strong safety? Is he playing nickel? Like, he's so good at so many different things, but yet that one little crux about his lateral movement is holding me back to where I can't find a perfect home for him. But also a ton of ball production, 5 picks, 6 interceptions, or 4 incompletions, and just really solid against the run, like I said. So I'm just going down my notes, making sure I note everything that stood out. But there's a lot of clear wins and things to like about Cooper DeJean. I just don't know what his role is going to be. Right now I'm thinking it's slot/strong safety. But we'll see this upcoming year at Iowa. He may completely change my mind because he does look good in press. And I mean, Iowa's typically a team that runs a lot of zone, so it's encouraging to see that he does have that type of ability in him as well. Then we get to number 2, Kalen King. And honestly, my top 3 here, I like all these guys a ton. And like I said, I love corners, so they tend to be the position group I feel I boost up the most on my big boards. So, take that for what it is. But Kalen King, in a lot of ways, could be this year's Devin Witherspoon. And, kind of a similar build, 5'11", 190. He'll probably run around that same 40 time, low 4.4s. Maybe he'll squeak into the high 4.3s. But lateral movement, change of directions, mirroring ability, he is just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else in this class. Like, that type of twitchy suddenness almost is more impressive than me as someone who could run like a 4.25. Like, it's just ridiculous. And it makes him so sticky in man coverage, while also giving him so much flexibility and freedom in zone coverage. He can keep his eyes in the backfield, read a quarterback, and because he can get to anywhere he needs to be in the snap of a finger, it feels like he's got that recovery ability, just in case he's potentially out of place. But yeah, such a fluid athlete, great ball skills too, 16 forced incompletions, 3 interceptions. I mean, the athleticism, not only is it there, but it shows. And he finds a way to get to the football. The only knock I have against him is he doesn't have great size, which then takes us to number 1, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who, like, one of my favorite things about him is his height, his arm length. And then you talk about 18 forced incompletions last year. It was like 17 PBUs, 1 interception, or somewhere thereabout. Do I want to see those PBUs turn into picks? Yeah, sure. But the job of a corner is to limit completions to a wide receiver, and he does that at an exceptional level. 6'1", almost 190 pounds. He also comes from a school that obviously has a great pipeline of producing NFL caliber DBs. Has the mirroring ability. He's not a super special athlete, but enough speed, especially recovery speed. Like, I don't think he's like a total liability to get burnt deep. Enough, sideline to sideline lateral movement to where he's not going to give up that quick slant. Sometimes he plays a little cautious. It feels like it. Well, more so. Sorry to go down this rabbit hole, but if you've been around the channel, you'll understand where I'm going with this. But hopefully, if you haven't, I'll still explain it well enough. Rashid Rice was a guy last year that he was a wide receiver that played bigger than he actually was, and he loved physicality. And it's almost like he was unwilling to deal with separation from corners. McKinstry almost kind of feels like the inverse of that. He knows he's got those long arms, and he knows he's a tall guy for his position. So because of that, he's comfortable giving up a yard or two of separation. He's comfortable giving up a little cushion. And I just don't want him to do that, to be honest. Like, don't give a window of opportunity. Like, just don't give that. And then when a pass gets forced in your direction, you get the chance to get that PBU or get that interception. But I think he's trying to do it to bait quarterbacks into making a throw, but he just doesn't have the interception total to really warrant it. So I'd just rather see him, kind of just negate that. I don't want to see any separation. And I get kind of where he's coming from, but I'm just not here for it. And then, 7 penalties through his first 2 years. And that's the other thing to talk about here. True junior. He started since a true freshman season, which is super special. And, shades of Derek Stingley Jr., where we're talking about, an 18-year-old getting on the field and playing for one of the premier programs across the country and standing out. And then McKinstry, unlike Derek Stingley Jr., just hasn't had a fall off. Like, he's still been fantastic since then, other than penalties. But 7 through 2 years still isn't as egregious as some of the other guys we'll talk about. So, yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry is my number one, basically just because I prioritize the size and the length just a little bit more. But if you're a guy who's like lateral movement, mirroring ability, Kalen King's your guy, and I'm not going to fault you for that. And then Cooper DeJean is the ultimate wild card because he could present the size and the length that McKinstry has while also having really off-the-charts athleticism and close to where Kalen King ranks. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about my honorable mentions, and we start with TJ Tampa. And I mean, simply put, 6'2", 200 pounds from Iowa State. He is a big corner, and he comes with the pros of having a big corner, and he comes with the faults. The size, the arm length, all that stuff's great. Awesome ability to win at the catch point. Like, he's awesome in the air, and he has enough recovery speed to where he's not going to be burnt to toast every single play. But he doesn't have like a key defining trait that I'm absolutely in love with other than his size, and the change of direction is not stellar. And he's like pretty good in coverage, not spectacular. So again, he's just like pretty good across the board. If you were to make him like 6 foot 190 or 6 foot flat 190, I don't know if I love him quite as much. But he's a really sound, smart, and the technique is there. Like, again, going back to the sound, like he's got it. I don't know how much coaching he'll really need. And at 6'2", 200 pounds, it's kind of nice to be able to think about a guy you could just draft and play and take advantage of a bigger corner. That being said, you're going to have a defense where you don't need his change of direction. Like, shades of like people who had some late concerns with Joey Porter Jr. and his change of direction, I understood that, and I kind of feel the same way about TJ Tampa. So then we get to Javon Bullard, and he is the other slot player that I had on this list that I wanted to talk about. And again, I didn't know if I wanted to put the slot guys in the safety rankings or in the corners. I decided to do corner. And Bullard, very instinctual player. I think he's got it from the shoulders up. And he's got good agility, good change of direction skills. And, last night was the season opener, the day of me recording this. And we see Brian Branch be able to just kind of read, react, see the football come his way, make a play, and take it back to the house for 6. And I'm not saying that Javon Bullard's going to be Brian Branch. Brian Branch was a top 10 player on my board last year, taking a small victory lap for the fact that he went in the second round for no reason. But that being said, like, Bullard could be like a poor man's version of that. I could totally see that playing out. Has played primarily in the slot at Georgia, so he's got plenty of experience there. Really comfortable in zone coverage, and I think that's where you really see his instincts shine. And a really good run defender, too. Willing to go make a play in the backfield or against a bigger back or in a screen game as well. And then getting over to the negatives, he's not great in press. We're kind of getting the nitpicking considering, slot corner, probably not going to be asked to do that a whole lot, but just wanted to note it so that way you guys get the full profile. And he has given up some big plays, and then I feel like he's been more cautious since then, which, it feels like it makes sense, right? Like, give up big plays, try to steer in the direction and try to limit those. But I think he's gone a bridge too far. I think he's just gotten a little too cautious, and because of that, he's a step away from making a big play. Or he's just a little hesitant to try to jump that route. Or maybe just thinking for half a second too long. So it's interesting to see as the course of the season plays out, like, does he kind of get that killer instinct back? And then once he does, like, is he giving up big plays? Because then that's a potential issue. And then, that definitely docks him a little bit and he'll move down this board. But right now, I think he's a really interesting slot safety hybrid player, and I'd put him right behind DeJean as like the best guy of that in this class, unless you classify DeJean as a corner or as a true safety. So it depends, again, what you think about Cooper DeJean. But I like Bullard a good bit. Then we get to Max Melton, really feisty player. I mean, this guy against top competition, Ohio State immediately comes to mind, doesn't back down from a fight. And I kind of love that dog mentality, especially from a guy, 6 foot 190, prototypical size. Again, I'm not going to talk about many sub 6 foot guys. The only two we're going to talk about today are King and Bullard, and those two guys are both 5'11", so they're not terribly far off either. But Melton, man, he'll go toe to toe with 6'4" Marvin Harrison Jr. and he won't be afraid of it. And I love that type of mentality. Again, prototypical frame. It's not special, but it's about what you would want. And he's really solid at reading the wide receiver's body and letting that kind of dictate the direction he wants to go and try to play the route, while also taking a step further where Nate Wiggins is, kind of watching hips. I think you get a little bit more body watching from Melton, and he watches a wide receiver's head, so he's almost always at the catch point when the ball's in the air. So I do like that a ton. 6 pass breakups over each of the last 2 seasons, so he's got that ability to kind of force those incompletions and just do his job essentially and win in the air. And then you get over to the negatives. I just don't think there's anything special necessarily. Like, I don't think he has like a ceiling that says first rounder or number 1 corner. To me, he's probably just a nice complimentary piece. And then you look at the PFF grades. They've been, good enough. They've been solid, nothing special, nothing to write home about. And I think that kind of backs up where I think he'll be at the next level, assuming, he does get there and there's no injuries or anything like that. He'll be a solid player. It would be pretty good. Happy to have him as CB2, CB3, something like that. But I don't know if he has that CB1 type of potential. And this year's also going to be tough because, Rutgers, if you watch that Northwestern game, you saw it. Rutgers' defense is legit. So there's going to be a lot of games, especially that front 7. Like, that pass rush against Northwestern was just demolishing. So I think he'll have a lot of good games, and honestly, he'll be kept pretty clean for the most part. So that could lead to us being a little skewed in how we viewed him, but it may also kind of boost up his draft stock because the numbers look that good. All right, then we get to Denzel Burke here at number 9, 6'1", 190, so just a little bit taller, prototypical frame, plus that inch that we talked about with Melton. And he's got long arms, man. He's not just tall, he's got those arms, and I really like that about him. 14 PBUs over the last 2 seasons, so not taking into account 2023, but of the 2 years prior to that, he's gotten some good ball production. And on top of the long arms, he's got a powerful punch. So the press upside is there. Now getting over to the negatives, he's a little thin, a little slight frame, and he's not super physical. Like, he doesn't want to go initiate that contact. Like, I feel like he only does it if fully asked to, like if it's a necessity. And otherwise, I kind of wish he had that killer instinct. I kind of wish he was saying, no, I'm taking this receiver out of the play at the line of scrimmage, punch, boom, you're done. You know what I'm saying? And I mean that punch like with press coverage, not like a literal punch. But because of that, he's a young player, true junior. Like, there's still time for him kind of develop that killer instinct. I said the same thing about JT Tuamelo, the edge rusher from Ohio State. So they just got a couple of young guys that's like, take that next step forward. Win this game for the Buckeyes, So hopefully this is the year we see those young guys kind of step up. The only other thing I had to note here was, his footwork's still a little bit of a work in progress. Like, he's still a young guy, and there's things to clean up. But I think with time, that can be just that, cleaned up. And then we get Kamari Lassiter, the last guy we'll talk about. 6', 180. Another guy that probably needs to add a little bit of weight. We'll start with kind of the negatives, and then we'll get over the positives, because it's very similar to what we talked about with Melton and Burke, so I don't want to be too repetitive. But yeah, slider build, like to see him add, maybe 10 pounds or so by the time we start, week 1 of the NFL season, assuming he does enter the draft. 5 penalties last year. That's a little concerning. And when he loses the line of scrimmage, he gets handsy, and you see it pretty quick. And he's got the, kind of like Burke, he's got that upside of being a press, corner, but it's just not there just yet. But you see kind of the isms of it, like J.C. Horn, and some of the other guys that once you got deep downfield, they could get a little too handsy. They could get a little too physical. So I think Lassiter's trying to walk that line, but it's deep down the field where I don't mind him being a little hands-off, literally, because I don't want the big penalty. But at the line of scrimmage, I want that killer instinct. I want you to go take this guy out of the play. And he's not great in the run game. So again, needs to add that physicality, kind of a repeating plot point here with Lassiter. The goods, he's 6 foot, maybe 6'1" with good feet, enough long speed, plenty of recovery speed. And he's really good against screens. So, it's weird that he's not great against the run, but I think it's more of an anticipation thing. If he sees it developing, he gets to a spot before blockers can get to him, versus the run game, he just doesn't shed blocks. So I think it's just more so like analyzing a play, seeing what's coming his way, and getting to a spot before everyone else, versus if he doesn't do that, he's kind of negated out of the play. So there's a lot of potential there. He's an intriguing prospect, and he could shoot up this board, or he might go down. George has also got a decent track record of producing NFL corners, i.e. Tyson Campbell and, Eric Stokes from a couple drafts ago. So there is hope, that Lassiter does take that step forward this upcoming season. But that is going to do it. Those are my 5 honorable mentions. And, if you're wondering, that next guy that would have been on the list would have been Jason Marshall Jr. from Florida, 6'1", almost 200 pounds. Really like that size and that length. Willing tackler, pretty good at playing the ball. So Jason Marshall Jr. would have been corner 11 if I did add one more name. But That is going to do it for my early 2024 cornerback rankings. I'm sure these will change a ton throughout the season, but let me hear your thoughts on this corner ranking down below in the comment section. And for the corner class, for that matter, who do you got at number 1? How's it play 1 through 5? And, if I didn't mention one of your favorite players here in the honorable mentions or 1 through 5, put them on my radar. Let me hear it down below in the comment section what you like about their game, and I'll try to make them added onto my list so that way I go back and check them out next time I get around to scouting some corners. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did. Subscribe if you're new to the channel and want to see more draft content like this. That's going to do it for me. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I am signing off.